Robert Fusel. I'm the managing director at Great Guns USA. I'm here with Addison Capper, the North American editor for LBB. This is our second in an episode called 5 in 30, Anything But Advertising. The idea behind it is 5 questions in 30 minutes. I'll hear those podcasts and those panels of everybody kind of saying the same thing and conjecturing about the advertising world and where it's going to go and where it's been. We want to do something a little bit different and really get to know people that we work with day to day in this business. And since we've probably seen some of their cats and dogs and houses, I thought, what is a better way to jump right in? So with that, I would love to turn it over to Addison, let him do a little bit of a talk.
Yeah, just a quick one. I wanted to jump in and obviously just say thanks to you two for joining. And anyone that is watching this is not live once you watch it, but thanks for watching anyway. Little Black Book is 10 years old now, which is kind of crazy. But in 2011, I like to say I joined just after, but we launched this thing with the goal of creating kind of one global hub to celebrate creativity in the world of advertising. Nowadays, USA holds our biggest audience, which is, we're pretty pumped with. But over that period, we've obviously taken kind of countless trips, zipping around various cities in the US, meeting with old friends and making new ones. You obviously don't just sit down and immediately just start talking about the business. You get to know these people as well in a way that we can't do over email or just a kind of very fixed Zoom call. Which is why I'm pretty over the moon that we're doing this with Great Guns and Oliver, because, it's very much about the creative spirit that keeps the advertising industry ticking, but also the aim of this is to really dig into the personalities of the people within it, hopefully filling some of that gap that we have at the moment until we can hop on a plane and hop over to Seattle, as where both of you are.
It's a great time to introduce our guest today. We have Gabe Hajiani. He's the head of creation and content at DNA. We want to welcome you.
Thank you. Nice to meet everybody.
I know that you're interested in architecture. Maybe you can give us a real minute overview of your entire life.
Absolutely. For starters, though, I'm a huge fan of this idea. I watched your first episode and I think it's really cool. I'm majorly stoked to be part of it. The thread with architecture, I went to undergraduate studies at the University of Washington and then graduate studies at the Architectural Association of London near the British Museum there, which is really where I started to take a left-hand turn in the architecture profession. Came back to Seattle and worked for a sculptor at a time in architecture where there was a movement sort of called design build, which was the idea that the architect was also the builder, which allowed them to draw less and move into construction more. But as important to that, use the process of construction as the sort of creative development process. And through the build, actually develop and enhance the design through the building process. And it made a lot of sense in architecture because there's a lot lost in translation sometimes with the handoff from the creative side to the sort of executional side. In advertising, you could kind of make that distinction between the creative side and sort of the executional production side. But I started advertising, talking to advertisers about, how the ability to bring your own ideas to life yourself would allow you to streamline the back and forth, but also use sort of the process of producing or bringing it to life as part of the creative development phase to develop and enhance the idea even more. And so that architect and producer, they're sort of comfortable in that that zone between creator and sort of executor. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. I mean, that is truly the partnership between, production companies and ad agencies or brands, if you will, today, that partnership in the maker, the creator. And in today's world, we all are makers in one way or the other. So that's really great. Well, thank you for that, Gabe. And again, welcome. Our next guest is Craig Jelniker. He's the director of integrated production at Wunderman Thompson in Seattle. We want to welcome you.
Thanks for having me. Same thing, big fan. Watched the first episode, was really great. Know a couple of those people, and it's really fun to kind of see them come together. So thanks for doing that and, exposing the community to all these brilliant minds out there. In advertising, hate to say this, but back in the 90s I had actually gone to school at University of South Florida in the public relations sequence and was just kind of lost. I didn't really enjoy it and was fortunate enough to kind of talk to a professor who turned me on to an internship program that they had, which was the foot in the door. So it's the classic, like, I interned there for so long that they kind of had to hire me. I think they felt bad for me. But the agency was Earl Palmer Brown, which, back in the day was kind of up and down the East Coast. So I started, with the intern route at Earl Palmer Brown, and then in a small office in St. Pete that worked on the Florida Lottery at the time, and Convention and Visitors Bureau, and a couple other little tourism accounts. And then just kind of bounced from there. The classic ad story, like as I met more creatives and connected with more teams that eventually, left and went to other places, I started following them around. So, it was from Earl Palmer Brown in St. Pete over to West Wayne, which is now 22 Squared. And then from 22 Squared and followed a writer who dropped my name to the head of production at Martin Agency, jumped up to Martin Agency, which is where I met John Noble, who Oliver. And then followed Noble up to Chicago to Element 79, ran Gatorade for a while up there. And then back down south to North Carolina, Boone Oakley. Again, guys that I met at the Martin Agency when I was there. And then from up to New York, some folks that I met up there. And that's, where I saw you last. And then family brought me out to Seattle. So finally made the journey west. And you know what they say about the West Coast, it's the best coast. And I'm loving it. It's just such a different vibe out here. And it's honestly like, having gone up and down the East Coast and then done a stint in Chicago as well. And I know the times have changed dramatically, and, the channels in which we have to consume media have changed as well. The landscape's changed, but it is definitely a different world here in Seattle. It is not the traditional, at least at Wunderman Thompson, Seattle, not the traditional, broadcast content production all day, every day. It is vastly different. There's experiential and event work and so much work on our digital platform. So it's been really refreshing to kind of come out here and start to get my hands dirty in other places.
It's great. I mean, they say, networking is really important and who is really important. And you just really kind of gave a history of, meeting people and taking you from one journey to the next and leading you to here. So it's really great to hear. Thank you for telling us a little bit about yourself. So we might as well get started. Don't, this is a very informal, you guys can talk over, to add in, interrupt, whatever you would like to do. But let's start with the first question. So in a world that we live in advertising, the words that we use are very important. In fact, that's how we actually sell our clients' product. And words are very, very specific, and they're very considered. So the power of words are more important than ever in a world which we've all had to entertain ourselves from home. The question is, what is the most profound use of a word or words that have stood out to you in the past year? And I think we'll go with Craig first.
Yeah, this is such a great question. And obviously, we just came out of a year where there was just so much information out there, and it was hard to kind of, let the smoke clear and find something that I could actually gravitate towards an answer with regard to being profound. And, the one thing that out to me, and this is more of on a personal level, was we have a vaccine that's 90% effective. And I say that because my wife is actually she works for the Bellevue school system, and as an educator, I want her to be safe, and I want her colleagues to be safe, and I want kids to return to school in a safe environment. So for me, that was big in a lot of ways. Obviously, like the implications of the science behind it and how fast they got it to market. I mean, that's just huge. I'm a science dork to begin with. I'm novice, backyard astronomer, and just, that's kind of what I read when I read is scientific publications. But that for me was huge. If you read between the lines, and what that says is there's hope. There's hope that we will return to some sense of normalcy. So to me, knowing that there's something out there that can eventually get us back to we all live for, which is, and I'm sure this is probably why a lot of us are still in this business today, is because we work with such amazing people. And I miss that collaboration, and I want that vaccine, and I want to get back to my peers and colleagues and get that inspiration that I get through osmosis of just being by them.
Well, I mean, thank you for that. Two things. One, bravo to your wife as an educator and a teacher. I mean, talk about heroes. it's funny. I think we all are heroes, the ones that stayed and distanced and washed your hands and wore and are going to get the vaccine. So bravo, bravo, bravo. But the other thing is that I remember early on in my career, people talked about how, we're not saving lives here. We're not like, brain surgeons. But the truth is that in this past year, there's been some profound, amazing creative work that you guys have created that really has changed culture, has moved, mountains. And so I say, bravo, really, that's a great word. And vaccine, everybody should go out and get vaccinated. But thank you for that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Gabe?
Awesome question. And I hope this answers it. Coming into 2020, we were talking at DNA about how sort of divisive the world seemed heading into the election. This is pre-COVID, obviously. And, and there was a thread that people wanted brands to use language that was more unifying and not as divisive. And obviously, once we went into the pandemic, many brands were using phrases like, we're in this together, we got your back. And so there was like almost, the pendulum swaying almost the other direction where everybody was sort of saying the same thing, sort of contrasted by how divisive the election was, being on the other side of it and trying to put it all back in the box, put the genie back in the bottle, as it were. How important platforms can be to, spread like a unifying versus a divisive message. I don't know if that answers the question necessarily.
Yeah, it did. So, is your one word would be? Yes.
Something along the lines of inclusion or unifying. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. The inclusion, that's a big, big word. And that's a word that we're going to talk about. It is a word that was bantered around, but look, I agree with you on all parts. I think it's, we're in a time where I think we all, having gone through a little bit of the glory days of advertising, having seen the downfall of a lot of political and, financial unrest in America. And then what happened in 2020 to come out of this and really have this like great spirit of let's move forward and let's do something that's really meaningful. It's great. So I appreciate your answer for sure.
I would just like to say that we pretty much smashed the timing on that. So,
good.
First question, we're not overrunning, and that's a good gauge for the rest of this. Just to let you know.
That's great. That's good to hear. No police on that one, so that's good. So the second question is: has the pandemic sparked any newfound creative passions or inspired you to act upon a burning desire? And if it did, what is it? And I'm going to go with Craig.
I've always done a lot of things with my hands and done some woodworking as well. So my wife was hot to get a free little library. So I built her a free little library. It was really, during the pandemic with the libraries closed, like it was amazing. We still get so much traffic with that thing. And I love that it's out there and, and people like it's kids that are using it, it's adults, it's people of all ages, which is fantastic to see. And then I've done so my son is on the spectrum and he has been all about walking. And that's the other thing that we do a lot. We've been averaging like 10 to 12 miles a weekend, but I don't know what I'm going to do with that down the line. Maybe I'll, walk for autism awareness at some point with him and try to create a better thing. I don't know. But yeah, walking and woodworking. So the 2 W's.
I don't know that I've done anything for 12 miles really other than speak, but I applaud you for that as well. I think that's really great and inspiring. So thank you for that. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Gabe.
Craig, that sounds like quality time. Good for you. I saw this question come across. I looked across the room at my dusty cello that I didn't pick up once during the pandemic. I think I'm a little hyperactive, and I think at the end of each day or even midway through each day, I'm coming back to the importance of fresh air, being outside with the family, and physical exercise. I thought for sure that I would make some progress on some pieces on my cello, and zero progress, negative progress, because I think the dust is built.
Just to interject quickly, I think that's kind of the perfect answer as well, because I commend everyone that has done something terribly productive, like build a library during lockdown. I think we need to be comfortable with that. Like, not everyone is going to pick up the tools and start hammering nails into the wall. You can just being and kind of enjoying outside is enough, I think.
Yeah,
it's
I love saying that because I felt like maybe the cello was a fail answer. But thank you. Yeah.
No, it's not a fail. In fact, what I want to say is that another advantage or a silver lining of this series is that we'll social this, and you should as well. So for you, Craig, there could be other people who play the cello who also watch the Dusty thing, and maybe you guys can get together and support each other in getting back into that. And the same thing with you, Craig. Look, I mean, what would be more inspiring that your compadres and your colleagues around the city of Seattle or even San Francisco have also children on the spectrum, and that creates this community that otherwise wouldn't have been. So I applaud you both for being so honest, and that is what this is about, is really getting into the heart of who you guys are. And thank you for that. I cry at the opening of a McDonald's commercial, so I have to watch my tears. But anyway, thank you both for that.
I'm building you all free little libraries after this.
I love it. Yeah. I love it. Well, I'm going to turn the next one over to Addison.
Yeah, I'll take this one. Pretty simple question, creatively, and think outside of the industry, not within advertising, but what makes your city sing? So if you think it could be food, music, art, theater, tech, it could be science, right? You said you're a bit of a science nerd, Craig.
Yeah.
So what springs to mind first? Craig, do you want to go first again?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, again, this is my nerd side coming out. So I still play video games, and I've got, yes, I don't have a PS5 yet, and I don't have the new Xbox, but I do have PS4, and I've got 360, and I've got a Switch, and you name it. So yeah, I'm gaming a lot, and I think that's one thing that this town does really well. You look at some of the publishers and game developers here in Seattle, and you've got Bungie here, which they created Halo before the buyout and buyback and all that, and then moved on to the Destiny platform, which is still a huge first-person shooter and has a lot of people playing on that platform. And then you've got Nintendo has their U.S. headquarters here, Niantic, who puts some of the power behind Pokemon Go. I think they worked in their kind of AR platform. And then there are over 20 different game development companies here, and the titles coming out of Seattle, I think, are just fantastic. I mean, there are a lot of places that make great games, but I think that is one thing that Seattle does really well that I was really happy about. And just having moved into my neighborhood, I met a couple of guys that are high up in the Bungie and Microsoft game development boards. And it's been fun to kind of talk to those guys and geek out with them and, join them in a slay fest of Destiny 2 from time to time. So I do enjoy that.
God, I had no idea. I thought Seattle was only known for coffee.
But that just keeps you fueled, right, through the long nights.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't do the heavy Mountain Dew and caffeine gaming sessions. I can stay up late on my own.
Okay. And then Gabe, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I was excited to see Craig on this chat so that we could compare notes. From the outside, is Seattle portrayed as the hotbed of anarchy right now?
A little bit.
Oliver, you're from the States, so I'm letting you answer that question. I'm going to say,
I mean, we all saw what happened, and it was, it was captivating and alarming. And at one point, I was like, is this American television? This is so crazy.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask Craig, I mean, so, living here, there was certainly the presence, but I don't feel that we're living in anarchy in Seattle. I mean, I think, we provided kind of the forum for the protests, and then, on Capitol Hill, we had a zone for a few months. And I guess to answer the question, how kind of resilient Seattle has been through through the ups and downs.
Able to venture out into your community or beyond that community? Did you find any areas that you didn't know about, or any restaurants, or is there anything that either one of you saw or found in this past year in Seattle that you didn't know about?
Craig's been doing more walking than me, so I'm going to let him kick this off.
Yeah. It's fun. So one of our clients, Gabe, is Visit Seattle, and so we have a campaign that we put out, during the early phases of the recovery. There were a lot of places that I got to discover through the Visit Seattle campaign, Renton, some of the areas in East and West Seattle, for that matter. So yeah, I did get to explore a bit.
Anything from you, Gabe? You good?
No.
Good.
I'm gonna time clock myself.
I'm not a video geek. I just never, I play tennis, and that's one of the only kind of handle things I can deal with. But I applaud you both. I've always been fascinated by Seattle and have not gone up there that often, but maybe I should. Maybe we all should. So here's the fourth question on our 5 and 20 anything but advertising with LBB and Great Guns. Get a little plug in there. So living and working at home for the past year, have you found that your priorities have shifted or changed completely? And I think that this is a very profound, because I think the priorities are kind of set early on. I don't know if you guys redo your goal list at the beginning of every year, but this one is one that I think we all set at a certain point in our life. But I think the reset happened midway through the pandemic. So with that, I'm going to ask Gabe, priority shifted, changes?
Yeah, and this answer might just fall right in line with what people are saying. Craig, how old's your son?
He's 15.
15, yeah. So my son is turning 15 on Saturday. I think just the slow way down and be present where you are when you're there has been the largest shift for me.
Right.
And I don't know if that's pretty typical or not, but slowing way down.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is pretty typical, and I think that is a really great thing. I mean, look, that's an amazing, what do all of the the top Fortune 500 CEOs and CMOs say? Meditate, slow down, take a breath, take time to smell the roses. So the fact that you've slowed down, that's huge, just in life, in general, and you wouldn't have been able to do that had it not been for the pandemic. So good for you, and I think that probably your son is going to be thanking you for many, many, many years to come. So. That's a great answer. I love it.
Just one silver lining, right? Not to trivialize everything terrible that has happened, but just being able to do that, right? I'm sure conscious you probably always wanted to do that, even if you weren't fully aware of it, just because you were never able to before, I imagine. So just being able to do that is pretty precious, I think.
I love that. Yeah, you're absolutely right. What about you, Craig?
No, I'm right there with Gabe on this. It's like, reprioritizing, being home with the family and making sure that the time that we spend together kind of counts, being able to cook dinner with my wife and, be able to help the kids with homework. They obviously, they need support from all levels, and it's hard for them being out of school and not connecting with friends, and, just being there for them is super important right now. So I'm right there with Gabe. I think, taking the time to be with family and being there for them is, it's never been more important.
So important. And Gabe, to your point, like that, it's across the line that people do talk about that, but you know what? That's such a priority in life. It should be, it harkens back to the old, I said this on the last segment, but I always go back to the Judds singing, the song about grandpa. Like in the good old days, being able to have those good old day memories with your family and your friends, I think it's just it's remarkable. So I love both of your answers, really. You go to the fifth question. It's the words inclusion and diversity have been used more in the past year than they have ever. And there's many varied definitions on those two words. Wondering between both of you, is there a difference between inclusion and diversity, or do you see them one and the same, or how do you see that? Craig, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, they're different, right? They're not diversity speaks to the makeup of the organization, right? The ethnicity, the gender diversity, all the various religious, ethnic, and different orientations all kind of coming together under one roof, being part of creating that culture. But inclusivity is the act of bringing them all together. They can be under one roof, but if they're not at the table together, talking and sharing ideas and actually listening to each other and accepting these new ideas, like
right.
You have inclusion is the act of bringing them together and taking all those different viewpoints and inputs and actually listening to them and engaging and acting upon that. So I think they're distinctly different. You can have one without the other.
Yeah, so you can't have one without the other.
Absolutely. Well, no, you can. I mean, you can be diverse and not be inclusive. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can be diverse, but you can't be inclusive without the diversity.
Right.
Yeah. Interesting. I think it's an interesting look. It's a hot topic. It's just, I appreciate your answer. And with that, I'm going to go to Gabe. What do you think? Is there a difference between those two words? And if there are, what are they?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what Craig said. You can talk about it. You can maybe put some diversity in the same room, but that doesn't mean that everybody has a voice, an equal voice necessarily. Right. And so inclusivity is more of the action.
Another thing that's interesting about this question is that inclusion, our diversity oftentimes means cultural or religious, or, in our world, in advertising, it could be, the young creative that doesn't have the best portfolio yet, but he's really brilliant and included in the next hire. Same thing with directors, young directors who really are trying to build their careers and their reels, and they don't have that thing. So they're not being included because they don't have certain things. They're not diverse enough in a weird way. And I know I'm taking that a little bit to the right or the left, but that is another kind of conversation maybe for another segment. But any last words on that topic?
Yeah, I mean, so coming back to sort of how we kick the chat off about, inclusivity and, with how divisive things were with the election, it just didn't seem that people were listening to each other. And so, getting to a spot where that can happen. Total tangential note to that. Have you watched Nomadland yet?
Yes.
So Nomadland was, that's, it's sort of a documentary in a fictional story framework, right? And it was filmed by this husband-wife, Van Lifers, and I can't remember their name on this call right now, but there was an article in the New Yorker about, so the director is a Chinese woman and doesn't, without sort of modern filmmaking technology, wouldn't be included in the process of filmmaking with all of sort of historical barriers to entry. And there was a quote from Quentin Tarantino who said, digital filmmaking is the death of cinema. And their rebuttal was, well, she's a Chinese woman. She doesn't have a way in. And then it's interesting follow up to that. She's now directing the next Marvel movie, The Eternals. So just kind of leapfrog into being part of a larger system.
I have a question, but I think I'm just going to go off script and just ask each one of you to kind of just, look, if this were the last platform for you to speak, I know this is going to be a big one, but what would you say to, your younger self about how you exist today? Go ahead, Craig. I'm going to let you go first.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, look, I'm a big believer, especially coming out here and kind of seeing the type of work that we do in Seattle. I'm a big believer in wearing a lot of hats. And I think I'm fortunate to have been in agencies and around people that have kind of nurtured growth with regard to broadening my skill set. So I know how to edit. I got a drone pilot's license. If you looked at my floor, I've got 17 GoPros sitting here and an Ursa Black.
I want to travel with you.
And 3 5Ds and so I'm just I pick up the camera and I film, and I think it would just be, keep getting your hands dirty. You become a better producer when you understand the process from concept through execution, and all the variables in between. First things I learned when I picked up a camera was, it was like way back when, right? And I'm whip panning all over the place. And then I brought the footage in to edit myself. And I'm like, God, I suck. But it taught me to be slow and steady with a camera, to look for opportunities to bring in, interstitial moments that help me get from scene A to scene C and things like that, like to get my cutaways and my B-roll kind of visual language together. So I think it'd just be like, get your hands on as much tech and as you can, connect with as many people as you can, find a mentor, gravitate toward that person from them. I mean, this to me, like, we work in one of the best environments with access to some of the best tools and best talent. And I will always be grateful for the people that I've met along the way. And I just tell people, or my younger self for that matter, is like, stay connected, like talk to a lot of people, pick up the phone. Like, you don't get it over email. It just, that connection's not there. Pick up the phone, talk to somebody. If you don't know somebody, have them call me. I'll introduce them to somebody. And, there's so much talent out there. I guess that would be it. It's just like, learn, talk to people, connect.
That's great. I mean, look, I think there are a lot of people in this industry that are afraid or think it's, oh my God, I can't pick up the phone and call Craig Jelniker. But, you just told the world that people can call you, and I'm going to tell them your phone number right now. But I think that that's brilliant. Do you think that that's something that, young people should hear? Because I think that they're thinking about so many other priorities that they don't really know the right path. But to meet people, stay connected, always learn, keep moving forward. Like, don't waste a moment to say hello to somebody or introduce yourself or tell your story or get there. It's amazing.
Really.
I love that. So Gabe, what would you tell your younger self?
Guys, Craig had a pretty epic answer. I don't know that I can really follow that up, but I'll try.
Oh, I'm sure you're going to do fine.
I mean, two things. I think the first is learn to listen would be, you learn more when you make things yourself.
I love that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Look, learn to listen is it's so valuable that people don't say it. Like, people don't have the time to say it. You know what I mean? Or when they do say it, or when you hear it, it's almost a little bit of a like people are like screaming at you, like, just listen, But to be able to say it in the way that you just did, I heard you. And I think that that's just important for people to listen, and stop talking, and always learning. Again, people should just always learn. There's people that can't afford to go to college. So there are other ways to do that. And again, why this is important for LBB and for Great Guns is that, social media is a really powerful tool. So to be able to have two people like you, so smart and so bright and so giving of your time and of your answers, I think there are a lot of people that you're going to be inspiring. So from LBB and Great Guns, we want to thank you. Time is valuable. We really appreciate you guys being open and honest and being willing to be on camera. And I loved all of your answers. We in advertising, we in production, so honor and respect the whole process of creativity. And as makers, we love the fact that there's somebody, coming up with brilliant and great ideas, particularly that we are in a time where moving forward and moving cultures and changing people's lives, I think is really important. So with that, is there anything that you guys want to say last minute? Anything?
No, I'm Gabe. It was so good to meet you. I'd love to exchange emails after this and make sure we stay in touch. And I apologize. Yes. My apologies that we haven't met sooner. That's all. Oliver and Addison, thank you for bringing us together.
Thanks. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you guys. Signing off here once again. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Take care, guys. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
See ya.